Now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com, joining us right now from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And what is the name of the tablet magazine? DFWOT?
OT.
There
yes,
you go.
DFWOT.
Right, it's Mac Engel. How you doing, Mac?
I can't complain, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing well. I understand you had a little traffic snarl today?
Yes, I did. That's one of the many pleasures of living in the greater Fort Worth, Dallas area is never-ending traffic. I don't get it, and I keep hearing people say that Houston is worse, but when you're stuck in traffic, it sucks anywhere you are.
Amen.
And I've had my fun with the greater Fort Worth, Dallas area traffic.
Well, I would trade places with you because here you can get stuck behind people moving trailers or log trucks.
Is Tyler one of those communities? Because I lived in an area similar size-wise in Springfield, Missouri, where the speed limit was 60 and everybody did 50.
Here, let me explain. You obviously have not been to Tyler. We have what is known as a loop. It's a pretty funny thought. And you know what has happened is this loop was built in the 60s. And so it was meant to try to divert traffic around, away from the major parts of the downtown and all that. Well, over the years, everything is built up on this loop. Okay, all the businesses on this loop. So what you have here now, and because we are known as a retirement community, we have a mix of people like my son who are, 15 and learning to drive and doing 80 on one lane of the loop, usually the outside lane. And then we have people who can barely see over their steering wheels who are driving 20 miles an hour on the passing lanes in the loop. And on top of that, up until just recently, we had what was probably the worst traffic light situation in the history of mankind. If there's possible to hit every traffic light every time you ever go out on the street, it was going to happen in Tyler, Texas. And so, and then they did a study just recently that the traffic on what is basically Highway 69 coming in south from Lufkin and Jacksonville, and then going north toward, Lindale and Mineola and all that, they claim that the traffic here at its worst is as bad as traffic at Westheimer in Houston in certain parts.
No way.
Seriously, that's how much traffic comes through that particular part of town at certain points of the day. In other words, we don't live in Dallas. We live in something that may be even worse because it has no identity. At least there, it's going to be constant construction, and everybody's going to try to blow your doors off doing 90. Okay, here it is. It is all over the freaking road. Okay.
So if the traffic is no different in Tyler than Westheimer in Houston at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, do you have a Galleria?
No. Now, if we had a Galleria, then maybe it would be, something that we could tolerate. Okay.
I've often wondered about that. Is it? And I have my own feelings about Houston.
Yes.
Is it worth it
to have a Galleria or to have the traffic?
I think I would rather deal with your headache of driving over the 90-year-old zooming at 20 miles an hour than 80 million people driving on the same road at the same time, so they can get to Pottery Barn, Chili's, and Starbucks.
Well, see, we have the joy of having both.
And it's fine. Every place is the same town. Every place has the exact economic footprint.
Yeah.
So whether it's Tyler or Houston, I'm taking Tyler.
Okay, good. All right, good. Fair enough. All right, now, let's talk about football here. Over the week, I asked you earlier, I know your wife went to Missouri. You went to Kansas, right? So you must really be a big college football fan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. I am a big college. I love college football. I'm a total junkie for it, as I'm sure, a lot of us are. As great as Kansas football is, I would much rather watch, or Kansas basketball, rather.
Yes.
As good as Kansas basketball is, we're in the title game, championships, NCAA infractions, all the earmarks of a great program. I would much rather watch the football team win 7 or 8 games. And over the weekend on Saturday, Kansas played Rice in Lawrence at 2 o'clock. Kansas lost to a dynamite Rice team on the last-second field goal. And then a few hours later, Missouri played its first SEC game in Columbia against Georgia, and they lost that game. So needless to say, from a football viewing standpoint, the Engel household was a total tragic mess.
Well, see, the only thing I can say about Rice, I have to be careful because we have a number of East Texas kids who are playing down at Rice, and so we're real proud of them. But I got to tell you that having to be a Kansas football fan, man, I mean, I'm serious. Just hide all the sharp objects and keep guns out of your house, okay?
I just don't think you're like. I am going to go cover for the paper this weekend. TCU plays its first Big 12 game against Kansas at 11 a.m. on Saturday in Lawrence,
man.
And I'm excited about going. I have only been back to Lawrence a couple times in the last 10 years, so I'm excited about going back to see my alma mater and some people and some things like that. But Bryan, I got to tell you, from a competitive standpoint, I don't think TCU is going to be as good as people are projecting this season because they're so young.
Right.
I can't see them not winning that game by 2 touchdowns. That Kansas team is so bad, and even though their staff looks to be a little bit better, even though there seems to be a slight upgrade and there seems to be more organization than under Turner Gill, I think that program is as bad as any the Big 12 has had since that league formed back in the mid-'90s.
Boy, and that's saying something for Kansas. You know what happened there? I think that Kansas angered the obesity gods when they fired Mark Mangino. I'm telling you, and I'm thinking that you're getting payback now for discriminating against really, really big people.
Yeah, well, they hired another really big person in Charlie Weis, and Charlie had undergone, I believe,
and he had the same kind of personality. He's just as nice as Mangino too, huh?
Yeah, I think Charlie's been around long enough. Charlie knows the media game a little bit better than Mark did. I think Mark, and I'll say that I never liked Mark Mangino ever. I never knew him. I just knew friends who dealt with him both internally there at the program and externally through the media. And I never liked him. I thought he was a horrible ambassador for the state's flagship school. I thought he was an atrocious ambassador. Even when they won the Orange Bowl and they went to the BCS and all that good stuff, and they were ranked number 2 in the country, I wanted him fired. I thought he was an atrocious. And the rumor was that Lou Perkins. It's just a rumor that Lou Perkins, the AD, then wanted to fire him after the Orange Bowl. There was such a personality conflict with Mark. So I never thought he was that good of a coach. I thought he had a dynamite season that year where everything fell into place. And because one of the reasons why he was so successful is that he came down into Texas and he rolled the dice on a lot of kids who other schools shied away from for various reasons. Mm-hmm. Aqib Talib should never have been at Kansas talent-wise. He's first-round pick of the Bucks. So when it comes to Kansas football, it is just an exercise of crap. And how excited can you be? As excited as I am to go out there this weekend, Bryan, and watch this team play,
yeah.
I know what I'm going to go watch is no different than watching, the Frankenstein.
You know what? Kansas ought to start scheduling Savannah State.
They tried. And the thing is, they would, and they lose.
No, boy. Man, that is a major indictment. If you lose to Savannah State, dude, that is not something to be proud of. Now, you asked what I was watching, and honestly, I'm a front runner, okay? I mean, I'm not going to watch Rice and Kansas. I did watch A&M Florida to see what the first SEC game was going to look like. Did you catch any of that?
Yeah, I watched a fair amount of it. I don't think it really surprised me too much. I think what's sort of should make people nervous is that Florida team is not very good this year. That's not your typical Florida team. Or I think Florida's down. The fact that they haven't found a quarterback, I just don't think they're very good, or as good as the Florida teams that we came accustomed to under Urban Meyer and Steve Spurrier. So I think the fact that a down Florida team went in to College Station in its first SEC game and won that game the way it won that game, I think is a really bad sign for A&M. But I think there were a lot of positives coming out. I mean, they were certainly competitive. It wasn't like they got blown out of the water. And that quarterback, it looks like he's going to have something. I think their offensive line looked pretty good. But, everybody's written it. Everybody said it. It's the same thing as last year, which is we got a lead and then we blew it. And until you change that culture, until you change that mentality, I don't know how anybody can expect anything otherwise, especially when the heart of the SEC schedule gets serious for these guys.
Well, and later on, they get the joy of going on the road 3 straight weeks, 2 games in Alabama against Alabama and Auburn, and a game against Mississippi State in Starkville, which is a nice place to die, by the way.
And Auburn's another one of those. I think Auburn is down considerably. I think Gene Chizik ought to send Cam Newton a residual check every year because I think Cam Newton's going to keep Gene Chizik hired for a couple of more, say, for another year or two. But Auburn is down, so you would think that's winnable. I don't see how they can beat Alabama. I don't see how. Do they play LSU this year, Bryan?
Texas A&M, yes. They're in that division.
Okay, so I don't see how they play. I don't see how they beat LSU. I got the East-West thing confused for a moment. I just don't. And you've seen SEC football. The SEC football is Alabama, LSU, and kind of everybody else. South Carolina looks pretty legit, but Arkansas, I mean, you can't lose at home to Louisiana Monroe.
No.
Now, I know Tyler Wilson got knocked out, but you can't lose that game.
And that may be from losing Petrino for, and there's another guy that, he kind of ranks up there with Mangino in my book.
But you know what? I'll say this, and this says, I don't know what this says, but if you had a struggling football program like Kansas, where you have no identity as a football program, would you hire Bobby Petrino?
Yes. That's the kind of job that he's going to get. I mean, that's the kind of job.
You know what?
That's the kind of job that Mike Leach will get. That's the kind of jobs teams that are desperate to win will sell out and hire guys that programs like Texas and LSU and Alabama won't touch because they're desperate to win.
And you saw it this week with Arizona. I think it was Arizona when they hired Rich Rodriguez.
Yeah, that's right.
If you put him in the right spot, he can win. Now, he may be an incredibly difficult personality to deal with, but if you want a full stadium and you want jerseys to sell and T-shirts and hats and donations to go up, just sort of bite it and say, okay, I'm going to hire this guy. And that's why I think ultimately why Bobby Petrino is going to get a job again in the next 12 to 18 months.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, there's a Vanderbilt out there. There's a Kansas out there. There's somebody out there that hasn't won in a really long time that's willing to put up with a real jerk to win football games and get back on the map. I'm telling you, they're everywhere in all these conferences. So,
and that's why I understand you give Bobby Petrino the job, because he did it in Louisville. He won at Arkansas in a way that nobody had won for decades.
Yeah.
That's why it would so surprise me so much when Kansas made that hire of Charlie Weis, who didn't have that track record, but had the kind of reputation of having a really challenging personality. As an alum, I hope it works, but when it comes to winning games, it's really hard to argue with what Bobby Petrino has done. And ultimately, you and I both know that's what's going to matter.
No question. It's all about the winning. It's amazing the sins you can forgive when you win football games. All right, tell people real quickly one more time about DFWOT.
Okay, thanks, Bryan. It's a new Fort Worth Star-Telegram sports magazine exclusively produced for the iPad. All you have to do is go to the iTunes store, type in DFWOT, and you will find it. It's $1.99 per month, and it's a full magazine with in-depth feature stories, quick-hitting stuff, interactive videos, and audio clips. And I do believe it will be the wave of the future for sports journalism. It's Fort Worth Star-Telegram, DFWOT, $1.99 exclusively for the Apple iPad.
And I think your next article should be how I spent the afternoon with Charlie Weis.
I could make so many inappropriate comments, but that will be the next one I'll work on.
Please do, because I'd love to read that. Hey,
okay.
Mac, it's great talking to you, man. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Bryan.
All right, buddy. Mac Engel from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, the Big Mac blog, and, of course, DFWOT for the iPad tablets. Check it out. Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live, 99.3 Talk FM.